New data show that Americans are heading for the exits to get the hell away from the current administration. The trend of Americans considering emigration under Trump's second term is much more serious than that vague, I'm going to move to Canada sort of thing. We often hear it more from people on the left than on the right. If X person wins, I'm moving to Canada. If George W. Bush gets reelected in 2004, I'm moving to Canada. That was a common one. This is not that. Expat consultants and firms that specialize in dual citizenship are busier than ever. And they are fielding a huge number of calls from Americans who are just looking at, how could I leave the country? Now, this includes skilled professionals, this includes scientists, this includes people who are just looking to do something different elsewhere. If you look at Germany's Max Planck Society, they have seen a huge increase in applications from American researchers. And there are other countries that are saying Trump has generated a new talent pool by virtue of what they are doing with DOGE and with federal governments. We're seeing marginalized groups, LGBTQ people, people of color, actively looking for ways to leave the country over concerns about authoritarianism and discrimination and potentially even violence. Ireland reported a 50% increase in Americans applying for Irish passports, and many of those are citing the Trump administration as the motivating factor. You look at Google Trend data and you see spikes in searches for dual citizenship or citizenship by descent. You saw it after Election Day. We saw it after Inauguration Day. And then you have companies like Polaron, which helps people get European citizenship by descent. They have seen a huge increase of Americans looking for Plan B. Now, I've said before, I am entitled to Polish citizenship because my grandfather, who was Jewish, fled Poland related to the Holocaust. The problem I've had is that the documentation to prove that lineage is mostly Argentinian, which is not accepted by Poland. And any documents that would be left in Poland, or what was then Poland, are now in Belarus because of the shifting borders. And so, because of the lack of diplomatic relations between Poland and Belarus, even though I would be entitled to such citizenship, I have found no way to obtain those documents. But it is certainly something that I would be interested in doing. Many Americans do have the documentation, either to Italy or to Poland or to Ireland or other places, and they are moving forward with that. If you look at TikTok, filled with accounts and influencers who give advice, how do you do it? One channel called Escape the USA is blowing up proportionally and offers tips about how do you do it? How can you legally leave the country? A lot of this has to do with Trump's executive orders, rolling back all sorts of different protections and diversity programs. This also includes people who just feel targeted by policies or feel targeted by rhetoric. And this has an economic impact. You say this to MAGA people and they go, get these sissies the hell out of here. No real man would want to go to Europe and sip espresso. Well, the problem is when skilled professionals leave, when young people leave that you need in order to counterbalance the growing number of retirees, that can have real economic consequences. So this is not just about, disgruntled people making empty threats. This reflects real concerns with the direction that Trump is sending the country into. Some may choose to stay and fight. Others might say, I've got to go. Now, as I've said before, I will get phone calls from people who say, hey, my kid is trans and I live in Mississippi. What do you recommend I do? And I always recommend figure out what is best for your family. And even though at scale, we need people to stay and fight, right? If everybody who opposes this insanity leaves, well, then there's no more opposition. So at scale, we need people to stay and fight. Individually, I would never tell anyone, don't do what's best for you right now. Don't do what's best to keep your family safe. What I will say is that depending on your situation, depending on your priorities, depending on your fears and concerns, moving to a blue state where things are far more normal Might be simpler. It's certainly simpler legally. It's probably simpler financially. So for people thinking of leaving the country, I always say, do what's best for you, but consider that there are blue states with stronger economies, better protections, stronger safety nets, which maybe are simpler and better fits. Something to consider. Well, I wrote a book after a long journey and a ton of work. I am really thrilled with how it turned out, and I hope you'll read it. The book is called The Echo Machine, and in a nutshell, it looks at how American politics got so broken, who has already figured out solutions, and how we can try to fix it and stop the terror of Trump for the next 4 years. With Trump winning this election, the Echo Machine couldn't be more relevant, not only a warning about how we got here, but also about what might be coming and how to prevent the worst outcomes. We've got to stay engaged. We need a plan, and that's what the book is about. There's a belief out there that unless you have corporate media behind you, you can't have a successful political book launch, that it's not possible. I think we can prove that wrong. Order The Echo Machine today at davidpakman.com/echo on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Audible, Kindle, anywhere that books, ebooks, and audiobooks are sold. You can also call any local bookstore and say, please order me The Echo Machine by David Pakman. Wherever you get the book, you'll get the free pre-order perks, including the signed book plate. Head to davidpakman.com/free book stuff after ordering.